For most people on Earth, life had become peaceful. Cities were busy, families lived normal lives, and space travel had become something ordinary. Huge stations floated around the solar system, and scientific teams constantly watched the stars. Humanity had learned many lessons after centuries of exploration. One of those lessons was simple. Not every place in space should be disturbed. Far beyond Mars, there was a region that humans avoided. It was not because they were afraid of enemies. The reason was much more serious. Strange events had been recorded there for decades. Ships that entered the area without permission often experienced unusual problems. Scientists had spent years studying the region and discovered that powerful forces hidden inside it could become extremely dangerous. Because of that, Earth had marked the area as restricted. Every known civilization that maintained contact with humanity had been informed about it. Most respected the warning. Some were curious, but none had tried to challenge it. At least, not until a powerful fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. The first signs were detected by monitoring stations stationed far from Earth. Operators noticed unusual energy signals moving together in perfect formation. Within hours, telescopes confirmed that hundreds of giant warships were approaching. Their design was unlike anything humans had built. They belonged to a civilization known throughout nearby sectors for its strength and its belief that no one could stand against it. News quickly reached the Global Space Council. Military officers, scientists, and diplomats gathered inside a command center orbiting Earth. Giant screens displayed images of the incoming fleet. Leading the emergency meeting was Commander Adrian Hale. He had spent his entire life protecting Earth's space routes. Those who worked with him respected him because he preferred peace over conflict. He believed that understanding others was always better than fighting them. As reports arrived, Adrian remained calm. He carefully listened to every detail before speaking. "Have they shown any hostile actions?" he asked. "No, Commander," one officer replied. "They are moving directly toward the restricted region, but they have not opened weapons systems." Scientists exchanged worried looks. Professor Nolan Reyes, one of the leading experts on the mysterious sector, leaned forward. "They cannot be allowed to continue," he said quietly. "If they enter that area, they may trigger something we still don't completely understand." Adrian nodded. "Prepare diplomatic communications immediately." Within minutes, Earth transmitted a message toward the approaching fleet. The message was polite and respectful. It explained that the region ahead contained dangerous phenomena and that entering it would place thousands of lives at risk. Earth requested that the fleet stop and alter its course. Hours later, a response arrived. The image of an alien officer appeared on the main screen. His expression showed confidence, almost arrogance. "The Supreme Armada answers to no one," he declared. "We travel where we choose." The transmission ended. Silence filled the command room. Some officers became angry. "They didn't even listen," one muttered. But Adrian raised his hand. "Send another message." People around him looked surprised. "You still want diplomacy?" someone asked. "We have a responsibility to prevent a disaster," Adrian answered. "As long as lives can be saved, we continue trying." Another message was sent. This time, Earth included scientific data and detailed explanations. There were no threats, no demands, only warnings and information. Far away, inside the flagship of the incoming armada, the messages were received by High Admiral Varric Doran. Varric had spent decades building his reputation. He was famous across his empire. Victories had made him proud, and praise from his people had convinced him that no obstacle could stop him. Several officers stood around him as Earth's message played across the bridge. One younger commander spoke carefully. "Sir, perhaps we should investigate their claims." Varric laughed. "Investigate what? Fear?" he asked. "They may be telling the truth." "The truth?" Varric replied with a smile. "No civilization warns others out of kindness. They are afraid. They wish to keep us away because they cannot stop us." Some officers nodded in agreement, but others remained silent. Commander Elias Wren, one of the fleet's navigators, studied the information Earth had provided. Something about the data troubled him. "The energy readings seem genuine," he said. "Perhaps caution would be wise." Varric turned toward him. "Caution creates weakness," he said firmly. "We continue." No one argued further. Back on Earth, more reports arrived. The fleet had not changed direction. Adrian stood near a large window overlooking the blue planet below. For a moment, he remained silent. Professor Nolan joined him. "They aren't listening," he said softly. "I know. What if they intend to attack?" Adrian looked toward Earth. "If they wanted war, they would have started already. I believe they simply underestimate the danger." Nolan sighed. "Sometimes pride is more dangerous than weapons." Adrian knew he was right. Over the next 2 days, Earth continued sending messages. Some were delivered by diplomats. Others came from scientists. Even independent space organizations sent warnings. Every response from the Armada remained the same. They would continue. As the distance between the fleet and the restricted region decreased, strange readings began appearing on long-range sensors. Small bursts of energy appeared and disappeared without explanation. Scientists grew increasingly concerned. Deep inside research stations, teams worked around the clock. Professor Nolan and his assistants examined decades of records. They discovered patterns that matched events recorded many years earlier. "Commander," Nolan reported urgently, "activity levels are increasing faster than expected." Adrian studied the data. "Can we predict what will happen?" "Not exactly. Can we estimate?" Nolan hesitated. "If they cross the boundary, everything becomes uncertain." The answer was enough. Adrian ordered another transmission. This time, he requested a direct conversation with High Admiral Varric. To everyone's surprise, the request was accepted. Moments later, the two leaders appeared face-to-face through holographic communication. Varric sat confidently in his command chair. Adrian greeted him respectfully. "I appreciate your willingness to speak." Varric smiled slightly. "I am curious why Earth continues these warnings. Because Livetiz are involved. We are not afraid. This has nothing to do with fear." "Then what?" Adrian paused. "Experience." Varric crossed his arms. "You speak as though your species controls this region. We don't control it," Adrian answered. "We avoid it." The Admiral chuckled. "And yet you expect us to do the same. We hope you will." "Hope is not strategy, Commander." Adrian remained calm. "Listen to me carefully. We are not threatening you. We are asking you to protect your people." For a moment, Varric's expression became serious. Then he shook his head. "History remembers those who move forward, not those who retreat. And history also remembers those who ignored warnings." The Admiral stood. "My fleet will continue." The transmission ended. Inside the command center, no one spoke. Adrian slowly lowered his hands. An officer looked toward him. "What now?" "We keep monitoring. That's all for now." Meanwhile, aboard the alien flagship, Commander Elias Wren stared at sensor reports. More anomalies were appearing. Navigation systems occasionally flickered. Several smaller ships reported temporary communication failures. Elias approached Varric once again. "Sir, unusual signals are increasing. Minor disturbances, perhaps, but there will be no retreat, even if the danger is real." Varric turned sharply. "Our empire did not become powerful by listening to fearful voices." Elias lowered his head and stepped back, but worry remained in his eyes. Hours later, the Armada reached the outer edge of the Forbidden Region. Every human monitoring station watched silently. Inside research centers, scientists held their breath. Families on Earth remained unaware of how important the next few hours might become. Commander Adrian stood beside Professor Nolan. Neither man spoke. On the giant screen, hundreds of massive warships advanced deeper into the darkness ahead. Then the sensors detected something unexpected. A pulse. Not from the fleet, not from Earth. Something else. It lasted only a second. But every instrument across multiple stations registered it. Scientists froze. Professor Nolan's face lost color. Adrian immediately turned toward him. "What was that?" Nolan stared at the readings. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "Something just noticed them." And far beyond the edge of known space, hidden within the darkness that humanity had respected for generations, ancient systems that had slept for countless ages slowly began to awaken. The strange pulse lasted only a second, but its effects spread across every monitoring station watching the Forbidden Region. Screens flickered. Warning lights appeared. Scientists rushed to confirm the readings, hoping some kind of mistake had occurred. But there was no mistake. Professor Nolan Reyes stared at the data in disbelief. The energy pattern matched records that had not appeared in more than 80 years. Commander Adrian Hale immediately looked toward him. "What are we dealing with?" he asked. Nolan swallowed slowly. "I don't know exactly," he admitted. "But something inside the region has become active." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. For decades, humanity had respected that area because of strange events no one fully understood. They had never claimed ownership over it. They had simply learned to stay away. Now someone else had ignored the warning, and something hidden in the darkness had responded. Far ahead, inside High Admiral Varric Doran's flagship, alarms suddenly appeared across several stations. "Report," Varric ordered. An officer looked confused. "Unusual energy waves detected. Source, we can't identify it." Another officer spoke. "Communication delays are increasing between fleet groups." Varric frowned. "My friend interference, continue." Commander Elias Wren looked uneasy. The strange pulse had affected every system for a brief moment. It had happened too quickly to explain. "Sir, perhaps we should slow down." Varric shook his head. "No, but no." His voice ended the discussion. The fleet pressed forward. Back on Earth, Adrian ordered every scientific team to stay ready. No one knew exactly what would happen next. Hours passed. Then new reports arrived. Several ships from the Armada had experienced temporary navigation failures. Sensors inside the fleet were producing impossible results. Distances appeared incorrect. Coordinates changed without warning. Some captains reported seeing flashes of light where nothing existed. Others claimed that entire sections of space seemed distorted. Commander Adrian immediately sent another message. To High Admiral Varric, we are observing growing instability. Turn back immediately. Repeat. Turn back immediately. This time there was no answer. Inside the alien fleet, communications themselves had become unreliable. Commander Elias Wren moved quickly between officers. Stabilize the relay systems. We're trying. Restore external sensors. They keep resetting. Elias looked toward the massive windows of the bridge. Outside, space itself appeared normal. But the instruments told another story. Nothing made sense. Varric remained calm. Maintain course. One officer hesitated. Sir, several captains request permission to reduce speed. They will maintain formation. Some believe we should withdraw. Varric's eyes narrowed. Fear spreads faster than truth. The officer quietly stepped back. Meanwhile, deep within Earth's research facilities, scientists compared new readings with ancient records collected over generations. Professor Nolan finally discovered something. His face turned pale. He rushed into the command room. Commander, Adrian immediately noticed the concern in his voice. What is it? The patterns. What about them? They match old data from the first human expedition that accidentally entered the region. Adrian remembered the stories. Decades earlier, explorers had encountered unexplained energy waves. Fortunately, they had retreated before things became worse. Those survivors had warned future generations to avoid the area. Humanity had listened. Now another civilization was repeating the same mistake. How long? Adrian asked. Nolan looked at the screen. If the patterns continue, not long. Adrian nodded. Prepare another transmission. But communications are unstable. Try anyway. Within minutes, the message was sent. It was short and urgent. We are not your enemies. Please turn back while there is still time. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, Varric himself appeared. The proud admiral no longer looked completely confident. What is happening out here? He demanded. Adrian answered honestly. We don't know everything. You said this region was dangerous. It is. Then help us understand. We have shared all the information we possess. Varric frowned. Some of my ships are reporting equipment failures. Leave immediately. The admiral looked away. Thousands of eyes inside his command center watched him. For years, he had been the symbol of strength. Retreating now would damage his reputation. His pride battled against reality. Finally, he spoke. We will continue a little farther. Adrian could hardly believe what he had heard. You're risking every life under your command. I need proof. Adrian's voice became serious. High Admiral, if proof comes, it may already be too late. But the transmission ended. Inside Earth's command center, frustration spread among the officers. They still refuse. Adrian closed his eyes for a moment. He wants certainty. And if certainty destroys them, Adrian looked toward the stars. Then thousands will suffer because one man refused to listen. Several hours later, certainty finally arrived. Without warning, a second pulse appeared. This one was stronger. Every sensor across the solar system detected it. Inside the alien fleet, power fluctuations spread from ship to ship. Lights dimmed. Communications vanished. Navigation maps disappeared. Officers shouted reports. We've lost contact with the outer formations. Sensor systems are offline. Propulsion output unstable. Commander Elias Wren grabbed his station. Emergency procedures. For the first time, fear appeared on Varric's face. Restore communications. We can't. Contact all ships. No response. Suddenly, one officer gasped. Sir, something's appearing. The main screen zoomed in. At first, everyone thought the image was distorted. Then they realized something impossible. Enormous structures were emerging from the darkness. They had been invisible moments earlier. No one knew how. They were larger than cities. Ancient, silent, motionless, yet somehow alive. Across the bridge, nobody spoke. Commander Elias whispered quietly. They were here all along. Another officer stared in horror. Impossible. The giant structures slowly began glowing with faint energy. Strange symbols covered their surfaces. Nobody recognized them. Back on Earth, similar images appeared. The command center became completely silent. Professor Nolan almost forgot to breathe. My God. Adrian stared at the screen. So they really exist. For generations, humans had only seen fragments of strange readings. No one had ever witnessed this. Ancient machines. Machines older than any known civilization. Machines that had remained hidden for ages. And now they were awake. Far inside the fleet, panic began spreading. Captains desperately tried to understand what they were seeing. Some ships turned around immediately. Others remained frozen. Varric stood motionless. His confidence had disappeared. Commander Elias looked directly at him. We must leave now. The admiral finally nodded. Order full retreat. But the order came too late. Another pulse swept across space, not violent, not explosive, yet terrifying. One after another, entire warships simply shut down. Weapon systems became useless. Engines died. Communications vanished completely. Huge vessels drifted helplessly. No attacks, no explosions. Just silence. Thousands of crew members stared at dead screens. Fear spread everywhere. What happened? We've lost power. Navigation offline. We can't move. Inside the flagship, officers struggled to restart systems. Nothing responded. Varek slowly sat down. For the first time in decades, he looked like an old man carrying unbearable regret. Commander Elias watched him quietly. Neither spoke. There were no words left. Back on Earth, scientists monitored the situation carefully. Adrian finally broke the silence. Can we help them? Professor Nolan shook his head. Not yet. We can't just watch. We may have no choice. Adrian clenched his fists. Thousands of lives were trapped. People who had followed orders. People who had trusted their leaders. People who had never wanted disaster. Hours passed. Then a weak signal finally reached Earth. Engineers boosted the transmission. Static filled the room. Fragments of voices could be heard. Then came a clear message, not from Varek, not from Senior Command, but from Commander Elias Wren. His voice sounded exhausted. This is Commander Elias Wren, requesting assistance. Everyone listened carefully. We were warned. The room remained silent. We should have listened. Behind him, the once proud flagship looked damaged and powerless. Fear covered the faces of his crew. We have civilians and wounded personnel. He paused, then quietly added the words no one expected. Please help us. Commander Adrian looked toward the screen. No anger appeared on his face, no satisfaction, only sadness. Because despite everything, he saw frightened people. Not enemies, not invaders, people. And as another mysterious energy wave appeared deeper inside the forbidden region, Professor Nolan looked at the latest readings and felt his blood run cold. Because according to the instruments, the ancient structures had not finished waking up. They had only just begun. Inside Earth's command center, nobody celebrated the disaster unfolding beyond the solar system. There were no cheers, no feelings of victory, and no satisfaction. Thousands of lives were trapped inside powerless ships, and with every passing minute, the danger inside the forbidden region continued to grow. Commander Adrian Hale stood silently as the weak transmission from Commander Elias Wren repeated across the speakers. Please, help us. The room remained quiet. Some officers exchanged uncertain looks. One advisor finally spoke. They came here with warships. Another added. They ignored every warning. Professor Nolan Reyes folded his arms. And now they need us. Several people waited for Adrian to answer. He looked at the giant screen, showing the helpless fleet scattered across the dark region. Fear and confusion could be seen among the stranded crews. They made mistakes, Adrian finally said, but those ships are filled with living people. Nobody argued, because everyone understood the truth. Not everyone inside those vessels had chosen this mission. Many had simply followed orders, scientists, engineers, pilots, medical teams, young recruits. Ordinary people. Adrian turned toward the operations team. Prepare rescue ships. Several officers looked shocked. Commander, entering that area is dangerous. I know. We could lose our own people. I know. Professor Nolan stepped forward. There may be a way. Everyone turned toward him. He pointed at several old records displayed on the screen. Decades ago, the first human explorers survived because they followed very specific routes. You think those routes still work? Adrian asked. They worked then. Can we trust them? Nolan sighed. We don't have anything better. Within minutes, Earth's rescue fleets began preparing for departure. These were not warships. They carried medical supplies, repair equipment, and evacuation teams. Across Earth, people learned about the situation. Many expected anger, many expected revenge. Instead, they watched rescue crews volunteer for one of the most dangerous missions in human history. Families gathered around screens. Children asked questions. Parents watched quietly. And everywhere, one sentence kept appearing. They warned them, and now they're saving them. Hours later, the first rescue ships entered the outer edge of the forbidden region. Inside the lead vessel, Adrian stood beside Professor Nolan. Every sensors was monitored carefully. Nobody relaxed. Outside the windows, endless darkness surrounded them. The ancient structures still floated silently in the distance. Their faint glow continued to pulse through space. But strangely, the rescue ships experienced none of the failures affecting the trapped armada. One engineer looked amazed. It's working. Nolan nodded. The old navigation paths are still recognized. Adrian slowly exhaled. Then let's bring them home. Deep inside the damaged alien fleet, hope had almost disappeared. Power reserves were failing. Medical teams struggled to help the injured. Food supplies were becoming limited. Commander Elias Wren sat inside the dark bridge of the flagship. The proud atmosphere that once filled the ship had vanished. Fear had replaced confidence. Suddenly, an officer jumped to his feet. Signal detected. Elias immediately looked up. What kind of signal? It's human. Silence filled the room. Then the communication screen activated. Commander Adrian appeared. His voice remained calm. This is Earth Rescue Command. Several alien officers stared in disbelief. Adrian smiled slightly. We've come to help. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then some crew members lowered their heads in relief. Others closed their eyes. A few simply cried quietly. Elias himself struggled to speak. You came. Adrian nodded. We said we would. Meanwhile, High Admiral Varric Doran sat alone inside a private chamber. He looked older than before. The confident leader who had once laughed at Earth's warnings no longer existed. He had watched thousands suffer because of his decisions. He had spent years believing strength meant never turning back. Now he understood how wrong he had been. A voice interrupted his thoughts. Sir, it was Elias. The humans have arrived. Varric closed his eyes. They still came. Yes, the Admiral lowered his head. After everything. Hours later, human rescue teams boarded the flagship. Doctors immediately treated injured crew members. Engineers restored basic systems. Food and water supplies were distributed. Not a single human spoke with anger. Not one insult was exchanged. Many alien crew members could hardly believe what they were seeing. One young officer quietly asked a human technician, "Why are you helping us?" The engineer smiled. Because someone would help us, too. Those simple words spread throughout the fleet. Ship after ship received assistance. Medical stations worked around the clock. Evacuation shuttles transported civilians to safer areas. Human crews risked their own lives entering unstable zones. Some rescue workers spent days without proper rest. Nobody complained. Back on Earth, billions watched the operation. News channels covered every rescue. People from different nations sent support messages. Schools followed updates. Children drew pictures of the rescue ships. What had started as a possible invasion was becoming something nobody had expected. A lesson. Several days later, enough power had been restored for High Admiral Varric to leave his quarters. He slowly walked through the corridors. Along the way, he saw human doctors helping alien patients. He saw engineers repairing damaged systems. He saw tired rescue workers sleeping in chairs after long shifts. None of them acted like conquerors. None acted superior. They simply worked. Varric finally reached the command center where Adrian was reviewing reports. For several seconds, neither man spoke. Then Varric lowered his head. The entire room became silent. Nobody had ever seen the famous admiral do such a thing. His voice was heavy. You warned us. Adrian remained quiet. We laughed. Still, Adrian said nothing. We ignored you. The admiral's eyes filled with regret, and because of my pride, thousands suffered. He paused. I failed my people. Adrian slowly stood. You made mistakes. Varric nodded sadly. Terrible mistakes, but your people still need you. The admiral looked surprised. After everything? Adrian smiled slightly. Leaders are measured by what they do after failure. For the first time in many days, hope appeared inside Varric's eyes. Weeks passed. Little by little, survivors were evacuated. Some damaged ships were abandoned. Others were repaired enough to leave safely. Throughout the operation, the ancient structures remained silent. Professor Nolan carefully studied them. The more data he collected, the more questions appeared. Nobody knew who had built those giant machines. Nobody knew why they existed. But one thing became clear. Humanity had survived because earlier generations had chosen caution instead of arrogance. That wisdom had protected countless lives. Eventually, the rescue mission came to an end. The surviving fleet departed peacefully. Before leaving, High Admiral Varric requested one final communication with Earth. This time, the message was broadcast across multiple civilizations. Billions watched. The proud admiral stood before the camera. Gone was the arrogance that had once defined him. His voice carried honesty. We were warned. He paused, and we refused to listen. Images of the rescue operations appeared behind him. The people of Earth tried to protect us. His eyes lowered. Our suffering was not caused by their hostility. It was caused by our pride. Across the galaxy, silence followed. No one expected such words. Then Varric continued. Yet when we called for help, humanity answered. He looked directly into the camera. They showed mercy when they had every reason to turn away. I hope future generations remember this lesson. Strength without wisdom becomes destruction, and pride without humility leads only to ruin. The speech spread across countless worlds. Many civilizations gained a new respect for Earth. Not because humans possessed the strongest fleets. Not because they had won a battle, but because they had chosen compassion. Years later, historians would remember the event differently. Not as the day an invading fleet was defeated, but as the day humanity proved that kindness could be stronger than anger. Memorials were built to honor everyone who had suffered. Schools taught the story to future generations. And every time Commander Adrian was asked why Earth had risked so much to save those who had ignored every warning, his answer never changed. Because being human isn't about proving we're better than others. It's about remembering that every life matters. Long after the damaged fleet had returned home, the forbidden region remained untouched. The ancient structures continued sleeping in the darkness, and throughout the galaxy, travelers who passed near that mysterious area always remembered the warning that had once been ignored. A warning written into history by the cost of pride. and by the compassion of those who chose mercy instead of revenge.